Thank you, Aishwarya, for joining us. And we've had many conversations with you, but first as Additional Solicitor General, so we congratulate you for that.
Thank you
it's
so much.
Good to see you here. And in fact, you just heard a conversation around the medical do's and don'ts, the do's that every woman should be aware of. I want to talk to you about the legal do's and don'ts. There are some laws that we don't know that work in our favor. So in terms of educating people, I think the main areas where a woman needs help could be either in a marriage or maybe sexual harassment at workplace. So first, in terms of marriage, domestic violence, can you help educate our audience as to their rights?
Well, so thank you very much for having me. I think if we divide it into two verticals, a woman at home and woman out of home, I think that would be an easier way to deal with it. If we speak about a woman at home, laws are very many, but if we could touch some of the verticals that are extremely critical for women to know in terms of their rights, their duties, in the home, it is first very significant to understand that despite the fact that we are all governed by our personal laws in our marriages, we don't have a uniform law that governs all of us, so to speak, because our personal laws are still paramount when it comes to matrimonial matters. There are still extremely critical gender-neutral laws which are there to help out women who may be facing domestic abuse, violence, assault, harassment of any kind. The topmost of that is the Domestic Violence Act of 2005, which is a hybrid act. So it starts off like a civil act and then it converts into a criminal consequences. So that way it cuts across all personal laws. So it is a law that is available to all. There are also sections in the Indian Penal Code with regard to mental cruelty that a woman may face, that's 498A. There is a CRPC provision of maintenance, that is 125 CRPC, very old one, but Domestic Violence Act has sort of become the one-stop shop for, and this is interesting because it does not cover just women in marriages, it covers women in all domestic relationships. So whether you are a mother at home, you're a daughter at home, daughter-in-law at home, sister-in-law at home, it covers everyone who's in a domestic relationship. It allows for your rights to be safeguarded in terms of your protection homes, maintenance, economic stability. It deals with sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, financial abuse. So it's a very comprehensive law. I think that is something that we all should know about and use it whenever required. Also with the intervention of some governmental schemes and Supreme Court judgments, there are one-stop centers available in every district across the country. There are district legal aid committees which are there in every district across the country. In some places it's right up to the taluka level, but district legal aid committees are available. And otherwise, legal aid is available only on your financial condition. If you deserve that, in terms of your financial condition, then only you get it. But for women and child-related issues, it is available irrespective of your economic capacity. So I think that help should be taken. I also think it's important with more women working, making their own living. I think it's important that all of us should make our succession plans. We should make our wills so that we determine how our legacy is to be devolved, how it should go into, because we are again caught up in personal laws. There are then adoption-related issues. Every woman has a right to adopt a child, irrespective of her matrimonial status. So there are very progressive laws that have now come into our domestic fields. And if we talk about the field outside of home.
Yeah, first, just want to a little bit in the home field. Domestic violence. Now, what happens is if you want to report a case of domestic violence, very often the husband comes out in a few months, maximum a few years, and then he comes and takes revenge. In the morning we had a session with victims who had acid attacks, and they were telling us how they had complained about the husband, and he was behind bars. Within 2 years he came out, and then they are worried about vengeance. Rape cases, we have the same problem also.
So, Priyaji, unfortunately, the system of rule of law, the justice delivery system takes time, but there are mechanisms in place so that the woman has the financial comfort, she has the help of a Nyaya Mitra, which is a legal, paralegal help which is available through these one-stop centers, medical assistance if she
What
requires.
is a Nyaya Mitra? Can you tell
Yes,
us?
so Nyaya Mitra, what is contemplated is somebody who's a paralegal, who's legally trained but not, a complete lawyer maybe, but a bridge between the legal assistance that the woman might require, so she has better access to the justice delivery mechanism. Now, relationships that are hunky-dory, they don't have problems. These problems are there where there are, where there's refusal from the other side. So I think when you're running into trouble, I think it's important for us to be stronger, to seek support, to seek help, and be determined about fighting it through. The systems are in place, there is help that is available, we just need to reach out for it.
Issue of marital rape also, I believe there is no law against marital rape, if I may be corrected. So how does a woman deal with that?
So I'll correct you a little. Domestic Violence Act deals with sexual abuse. So that is a hybrid law that already makes sexual abuse as a matrimonial wrong, which can convert into some criminal consequences also if there is violation to the protection orders, restraint orders, etc. that could be passed under the Domestic Violence Act. However, under the IPC, there is an exception. So under the IPC, sexual intercourse of a married man with his own wife is not treated as a marital rape. Of course, the matter is sub judice. I hold an important position as a law officer of the Union government, so I refrain from speaking about these things, which I will have to be dealing with in court. But just as way of a passing reference, I think we have far bigger problems in terms of, if a client comes to our office, we have to, as lawyers, we have to ask them, did you get married in Hindu religion, or Islamic religion, Christian religion, or how did you get married? I think we need to stop asking those questions. Our rights, duties, and responsibilities should be gender neutral and religion neutral. What is this that and it's just matrimonial laws that are still confined in that corner of, being dealt by personal laws. So,
well, I think the correction is happening. The Uniform Civil Code is on its way, if I'm not wrong. But, okay, regarding property and inheritance also, the women's rights to a large extent have been, she gets equal rights. But is there anything else that, we don't know that you would like to share with us, the finer points?
Yes, so I absolutely feel that, succession laws will apply if a person has not made his will. So if the testamentary document has been made by the person, then the testamentary document alone, which is a will, testamentary document is nothing but a will. So that is why I recommend to every woman and every man also, if you have got any legacy, if you have made any property, if you own anything, please make sure that you make a will. You just need to have 2 witnesses to that will, and that's it. It need not be a registered will. You just make that will, and you can register it if you like. It's optional always, but it's not mandatory for that will to be registered. But please make a will. Whatever you want done with your property should be determined by you.
Thank you. Now about the laws for a woman outside the home.
Yes, so if we speak about outside home, I think, there's one whole aspect of the criminal laws, but I think we should focus more on a woman who has to go to the workspaces. So a woman who has to go to the workspaces, we have to start from the Constitution, which allows not just... So we have a very interesting system in our Constitution where it is affirmative equality. We don't believe in equality of all. We believe in equality of equals. Because if you're treating unequals equally, that is perpetrating inequality in a way. So that affirmative equality, affirmative action allows governments, states, policymakers to come with laws, provisions which are for the betterment of women. That is how they can be, these special laws can be made for women, for children, etc. So what we need to understand is, the reservation that is provided in public employment is something that we all should, be aware of, take advantage of. That is, of course, a vertical reservation in the existing constitutional reservations, but a vertical reservation is paramount. Then we have, in the political area also, we have reservation up to the Gram Panchayat levels by virtue of the 73rd constitutional amendment. What is extremely significant is how we are treated in our workplaces. So we all should know that we are entitled to maternity leaves, maternity benefits, childcare leaves, And these leaves, etc., are available not just in case where we have a childbirth. It's available even when we have a miscarriage. So that is also covered in the maternity relief. There is equal pay for equal wages. Gone are those days where a man and woman, I mean, some places in practice maybe still happens, but Constitution bars it completely. It's equal pay for equal wages for equal work, irrespective of your gender. Then 2013, we had again a very landmark law that came in to curb sexual harassment of women at workplaces. Of course, it started with Vishaka Guidelines, which is a judgment of 1996 by the Supreme Court. So those guidelines continued for 17 years before the law came in 2013. So that law has provided for a very institutionalized mechanism to deal with all cases of sexual harassment. You would be, people who are in workspaces would be aware, universities, colleges, workspaces, wherever there are women, it is mandatory for these committees to be there. Committee has to be headed by a woman. One half of the committee constitution has to be women. So the mechanisms are in place. I wouldn't say that the infractions have stopped or violations have stopped, but the institutional mechanisms are in place, and this is definitely work in progress. Also, in addition to maternity leave, I think the aspect of creches being made mandatory under the law for workplaces which employ a minimum number of women is also a very welcome step. We are beneficiaries of it at the Supreme Court. We did not have a creche for the longest time. We just had it like 6-7 years back. But it's such a respite for a woman to not go through that crisis when she becomes a mother, whether she wants to continue to work or whether which mother will put her work over her children? But why should she be put into that spot, that whether you want to be a mother or you want to continue with your work? So some interesting developments there.
Yes, a lot of progressive. In fact, I was very pleased to note India's abortion rights versus what has been reversed in the US. So in some cases, we are more progressive than the West also.
Actually, interesting that you mentioned it. Yesterday only we had a matter that we argued. I had the privilege of assisting the Supreme Court in this matter, where the court is considering the medical termination of pregnancy rights of an unmarried woman because the rule under the MTP Act, the rules prescribe that if there's a change of matrimonial status, so if the woman becomes a widow or a divorcee during the course of the pregnancy, then she could terminate her pregnancy up to 24 weeks. But the Supreme Court has looked into it. They allowed this young woman to terminate her pregnancy on medical advice. And yesterday we finished arguments. The judgment is reserved. And we looked at all this. So there was no occasion for the court to relook at how the Roe versus Wade has been overturned. In fact, what's the best thing about our constitutional courts is our constitution continues to be looked at as an organic, dynamic document. It's not a document that is stuck in a moment, that what the constitution makers have decided, that is how you have to interpret the constitution. In our system of interpretation of constitution, our constitutional courts use a very interesting yardstick, that constitution and fundamental right principles are like empty vessels. And every generation has to fill those empty vessels with its own wisdom. So it's not the wisdom of the constitution makers that will prevail. It's the wisdom of this generation that must define the dynamic interpretation of the constitution. That is why we have had such incredible constitutional interpretations coming from the courts.
I have a very basic question, which is, what are the rights of a young, we have a lot of young kids, professionals. When we have to report a case of, say, eve teasing or some, sexual harassment in a bus or workplace, what are her rights in a police station? Does she need to have a woman police officer? Can she get the case if registered regardless, or do we have to fulfill certain criteria?
No, so there's no requirement of a woman police officer mandatorily for any woman to report a case as a complainant. If you feel more comfortable with that, you can certainly ask for it. Also, I think one more important thing is technology has made this, this barrier very easy, because at least in Delhi now, you could register an FIR online, so you just don't need to have that interface with the cops anymore. You don't need to walk into a police station. So it's easy to just register it online. Then you have those paralegals like Nyay Mitras, etc. that I spoke about. This is happening under the auspices of NALSA, which is the National Legal Services Authority, which goes right down up to the, the grassroots level of providing legal aid to all. So if you think that there is, seek help. I mean, have assistance of friends. Also seek help. There are lots of government-recognized NGOs which are impaneled with the Ministry of Women and Child Development, and some of these NGOs are doing brilliant work. Please seek help wherever required, and legal aid is something that we all must know as women, because legal aid allows us to have access to justice, and we get very good advice also there. And let me tell you, legal aid, it's not, you don't think that legal aid doesn't have good quality lawyers. In fact, it's a matter of pride for a lawyer to be a legal aid volunteer. So a lot of good lawyers, in fact, the best of the lawyers volunteer their time and energies into legal aid. Please take the assistance if required.
Thank you so much. I think we are winding up. If we have time, I want to ask you one quick question. Our rape law, when we are reporting rape cases, is it a lot of people hesitate because of all the formalities one has to follow? Burden of proof is really on the woman. Has that become easier?
Much, much, much easier. Earlier, reporting a rape case and then going through the trial used to be, in the words of the Supreme Court, adding insult to injury. That has changed to a great level, because the word of the prosecutrix, if it inspires confidence, then it does not need corroboration. Yes, so that is but it has to inspire confidence. That is the yardstick. Of course, it has to go through the legal process, because the rule of law is something that is sacrosanct for a democracy. After all, there's somebody's life and liberty on the other side also. So it has to go through that due process, but that victimization of the victim has, laws have been made and procedures have been put in place to make sure that victimization of the victim ends.
Thank you so much. That is a very positive and reassuring note, that thing. And thank you for explaining it all so comprehensively and so cogently. Thank you very much for this conversation.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.